So Rahaf Mohammed Al-Kanan is an 18-year-old woman from Saudi Arabia who has escaped from family abuse as well as an oppressive Saudi Arabian regime. So Rahaf Mohammed, formerly Rahaf Mohammed Mutlaq Al-Kanan, I apologize if I'm butchering that, born March 2000, is a Saudi woman who was detained by Thai authorities on the 5th of January 2019 while transiting through Bangkok Airport en route from Kuwait to Australia. She had intended to claim asylum in Australia and escaped her family, who she says abused her and threatened to kill her for, amongst other reasons, leaving Islam, an act that is also a capital offense according to Saudi law. After appealing for help on the social media service Twitter and thus gaining significant worldwide attention, Thai authorities abandoned their plans to forcibly return her to Kuwait, from where she would be repatriated to Saudi Arabia, and she was taken under the protection of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights and granted refugee status. On January 11, 2019, she was granted asylum in Canada and arrived in Toronto the next day. Mohammed was born on the 11th of March 2000. Her father is the town governor of Al Salami in the Hayal region. I know I might be mispronouncing that. She has 9 siblings. She has said that her family prevented her from getting an education, had locked her up for 9 months, subjected her to physical and psychological abuse, wanted her to enter into a forced marriage, and threatened to kill her because she no longer follows Islam. Apostasy in Islam is a crime punishable by death, according to the Sharia law of Saudi Arabia. While Mohammed was on vacation with her family in Kuwait, she left them and boarded a flight to Bangkok, Thailand. She intended to continue on another flight to seek asylum in Australia. A tourist visa had been issued to her family that permitted entry into Australia. Her family reportedly filed a missing person report after her escape from Kuwait. Upon arrival at Suvar Nabumi Airport in Bangkok, apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, a man greeted her, not disclosing that he was a Saudi embassy official, and told her that he needed her passport so that he could help her obtain a Thai visa. He left with her passport and did not return. Mohammed never intended to leave the airport's transit area and therefore did not require a Thai visa. She was detained by Thai authorities at the Miracle Transit Hotel within the airport. Mohammed opened an account on Twitter and in a series of posts said that she had renounced Islam and was concerned that she could be murdered by her family in a so-called honor killing if deported to Saudi Arabia. She also said she had barricaded herself in her hotel room, was refusing to exit until she met with UN representatives, claimed refugee status, and implored embassy officials of various Western nations to assist her in seeking asylum. This drew worldwide support with more than 500,000 tweets using the hashtag #SaveRahaf hashtag. In one tweet, she shared a picture of her passport. Australian ABC journalist Sophie McNeil barricaded herself with Mohammed in the room to protect her. While barricaded, Mohammed also allowed a friend to tweet on her behalf. Lawyers in Thailand filed an injunction to prevent her forced deportation. The injunction was subsequently dismissed, though an appeal was planned. Thailand's chief of immigration at the Royal Thai Police, Sarishat Hapkarn, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, subsequently confirmed that authorities in the country had acted at the behest of Saudi Arabia. Mohammed was scheduled to be forcibly repatriated on a flight to Kuwait on January 7, 2019, but successfully avoided that. The Thai government later released a statement saying that it would not deport her. Francois Zimmeré, a lawyer chosen by the European Saudi Organization for Human Rights to defend Mohammed in Bangkok, against deportation back to Saudi Arabia, judged the role of Mohammed's tweets to have played an overwhelming role in preventing her deportation. Zimmeré stated that the Thai authorities' attitude changed completely in a few minutes when they realized the strength of international support for Mohammed. Mohammed revealed in a later interview that she wrote a goodbye letter and decided that she would end her life if she was to be forced back to Saudi Arabia. And this information I got courtesy of Wikipedia. And to give you an idea of what a backwards, oppressive regime she was escaping from in Saudi Arabia, I got some information from the Travel Smart app. Right there, the Travel Smart app. So basically, Travel Smart is gets their information from the government of Canada. And it basically gives traveler information such as travel advisories and other pertinent information when it comes to traveling to other countries outside Canada. Will tell you about their a little bit about their legal system, their laws and customs. Tell you about their health situation if you have to get any kind of health care. Tell you about safety and security procedures, entry requirements. But it basically is a Government of Canada website that tells you about precautions that you should be taking when you travel to foreign countries. So I'm going to read a little bit from that Travel Smart website about what it says about Saudi Arabia. So laws and culture. You must abide by local laws. Learn about what you should do and how we can help if you are arrested or detained abroad. The work week is from Sunday to Thursday. So that's a little bit of common sense, you know. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So in other words, when you go to a foreign country, you should be prepared to abide by their laws. Otherwise, face the consequences. However, Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, is a very oppressive, backwards country, in my opinion. And here's why. Here are some of their laws. So, illegal or restricted activities in Saudi Arabia. Criticizing the royal family and Islam are illegal. Religious proselytizing is also not permitted. So, in other words, I think religious proselytizing, I'm going to have to Google that, but I think it basically means promoting any religion other than Islam or speaking out against Islam. But basically, yeah, you're not allowed to promote any religion except for Islam in Saudi Arabia. Be cautious when discussing political and religious issues. Common law relationships, adultery, and prostitution are illegal and are subject to severe punishment, including the death penalty. Dancing, music, and movies are prohibited. Imported and domestic audio-visual media and reading materials are censored in Saudi Arabia. Penalties for the import, manufacture, possession, and consumption of alcohol, pork, illegal drugs, or products containing their ingredients are severe. Saudi authorities practice zero tolerance and make no distinction between alcohol and soft or hard drugs. Drug offenders may be sentenced to corporal punishment or death. It is forbidden to photograph official buildings, example, government, military institutions, and holy sites. Seek permission prior to photographing individuals. LGBTQ2 travel. The laws of Saudi Arabia prohibit sexual acts between individuals of the same sex. Those convicted may face the death penalty. LGBTQ2 travelers should carefully consider the risks of traveling to Saudi Arabia. See lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and two-spirit Canadians abroad for more information. Dress and behavior. The country's customs, laws, and regulations adhere to Islamic practices and beliefs. Dress conservatively, behave discreetly, and respect religious and social traditions in order to avoid offending social insensitivities, especially in holy cities Mecca and Medina, as well as in mosques. Avoid physical contact, such as holding hands in public. Women should observe the strict Saudi dress code and wear conservative and loose-fitting clothes, including a full-length cloak, which is called an abaya, and a headscarf. Men should not wear shorts in public or go without a shirt. Seek guidance concerning acceptable clothing before your arrival. Women are not allowed to associate with men in public unless the women are accompanied by other family members. A woman can be charged with prostitution if she is found associating with a man who is not a relative. Restaurants have two sections, one for men only, and the family section where families, accompanied females, and unaccompanied females are served. During the lunar month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Muslim calendar, refrain from drinking, eating, and smoking in public between sunrise and sunset. In 2019, Ramadan is expected to begin on or around May 5th. Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. The Matawa, also known as the Religious Police, have harassed, pursued, and assaulted foreigners they believe disregard strict Saudi standards of conduct and dress. Often they will simply instruct women to cover their hair. The Matawa carry special identification and are typically accompanied by a uniformed police officer. If you are stopped by the Matawa, cooperate and ask them for their credentials. Offer to accompany them to the nearest police station. Do not hand over identification documents. Inform your sponsors if the police retain your documents. So basically, I've watched some other videos about Rahaf Mohammed, and there has been a lot of support for her. And there's been a lot of praise for her, like good luck and all that stuff, and praise for her to bravely get up and move to another part of the world to escape an abusive situation. But there's also been a lot of ignorance as well, too. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, she comes from a rich family. She had servants. You know, she grew up surrounded by luxury and wealth. Well, tell me something. What amount of luxury and wealth is worth being abused for? I don't care how filthy rich I am. If I'm being abused, it's not a lifestyle that I care to be part of. Like, how does having lots of wealth make it okay to remain in an abusive situation? I've seen some people also comment that they think she's lying. Is there a possibility she's lying? Of course there could be, but I don't happen to think that she is. Because you heard those laws that I was talking about in Saudi Arabia. You know? Like if you even dress the wrong way, you could end up being severely punished, maybe even executed. If you say anything, if you oppose the royal family or oppose Islam, you could get executed. And for people that are gay or bi, people that are non-heterosexual, they could end up being executed too for their lifestyle. Like, who could live in such an intolerant society? Certainly not me. Like, thank goodness I live in Canada. Thank goodness I was born in Canada and I've lived in Canada all my life. Thank goodness Canada is a secular democracy where you have freedom of speech and freedom of religion, freedom of peaceful assembly, and where if you work hard, you can achieve great things in life. And basically the only laws when it comes to dress and attire in Canada are to make sure to cover your private parts. Like what a repressive regime that this young woman is coming out of. And to be abused by her own family. I've read and heard that she was being abused by her own brother and her own mom. Like one of the examples I heard about was how she was locked up in her room for 6 months just for cutting her hair. Like, really? And they wanted to force her into a prearranged marriage as well, too. Like, to me, Saudi Arabia is it's a horrible regime. It's one of the most horrible countries on earth that I've read about, where women and girls are just treated like property. I've heard about stuff like 8- and 9-year-old girls being married to 40- and 50-year-old men in Saudi Arabia. Like, what kind of a sick society is that? And I've got to tell you, there's a lot of good Muslims in this world. There's a lot of good, peaceful, law-abiding Muslims in this world. But there's also a lot of bad Muslims in this world too. Like some of the things I've heard about in the Quran, I've heard that the Quran tells husbands to beat their wives. I've also heard that the Quran basically calls for the death or the execution of anyone who's not Muslim. And I've heard that the Quran and some Muslims even have a special hatred for Jews. I used to work with a Muslim at one of my previous workplaces. And this particular guy, he had an extreme hatred for Jews. an extreme hatred for Jews. Like, he expects people to be tolerant of his religion, but he has an extreme hatred for Jews. He's also a male chauvinist pig as well, too. Like, he would say things repeatedly over and over again like it's a man's world. He would talk about how his wife was working in a warehouse doing a man's job. What exactly is man's work and what exactly is woman's work? Someone please tell me. No, men and women, boys and girls are equal to one another. There is no one gender that is better than another gender. And there are some while there are some very good Muslims out there that are peaceful, law-abiding, hard-working people who make a very valuable contribution to society, there's also some bad Muslims out there too. Like, some of the stuff I've heard about happening, being perpetrated by Muslims, say, I think a couple of years ago in Cologne, Germany, I was hearing on New Year's Eve that there were several hundred or maybe even over 1,000 Muslim men that raped hundreds of women in Cologne, Germany. I've heard about rape gangs, Muslim rape gangs running around Sweden as well, too, where you'll get like 20 Muslim men gang raping one woman. I've heard that in Sweden that they have some no-go zones because the Muslims living in those areas are so intolerant of everyone else. And you do have those Muslims that feel, they'll go and live in a Western country like Canada or Australia or parts of Europe, and they try to force their Muslim ways on the Western world. Like, for example, I know that in some societies that celebrate Christmas, that unfortunately some people are afraid to wish other people a Merry Christmas because it's seen as being politically incorrect. I know that, for example, the city of Toronto, they put up a Christmas tree every year in front of Toronto City Hall, Nathan Phillips Square. If I remember correctly, for a while, they were just calling it a holiday tree. They refused to call it a Christmas tree for fear of offending people that don't celebrate Christmas. By no means do I have a problem with all Muslims. Again, I'll repeat that. By no means do I have a problem with all Muslims, because I know that there's a lot of good Muslims out there. But for the bad Muslims that are going around committing crimes, committing terrorism, and just being in general bad people, you are giving your entire community a bad name. You're making your entire religion look bad by committing atrocities against the innocent. Like, I say, good on Rahaf Mohammed for escaping from a repressive regime like Saudi Arabia, and good on her for renouncing Islam and deciding that she's going to convert to another religion apart from Islam. She's a brave young lady in my eyes and the eyes of many others, and I wish her good luck. And welcome to Canada. I hope that you have a very good life here in Canada. And also another thing too is that I think that it's up to some members of the Muslim community, like the good Muslims, to call out the bad Muslims that are committing crime and terrorism. And it's up to the good Muslims that know of rogue mosques out there that are preaching hatred and preaching terrorism and preaching all things bad. I think it's up to them to go to the authorities and turn in those mosques that are preaching hatred and preaching violence. Because it's not fair for the good Muslims to have to suffer for acts that are committed by bad Muslims. And let's hope, it would be nice if Saudi Arabia one of these days decides to step into the 21st century and start treating all their citizens as equals and becomes a democracy similar to places like Canada and Australia and New Zealand and Western Europe. I mean, Saudi Arabia is an extremely wealthy country, quite possibly the wealthiest country in the world. It's too bad that they have such a repressive regime. All we can do is encourage change. Change for the better.